And thank you for joining us for this monthly discussion group, Zoroastrianism Outside the Box, hosted by the NAMC Institute of Zoroastrian Studies. Now, the North American Morbid Council is a not-for-profit organization dedicated to serving the religious and spiritual needs of the North American Zoroastrian community. The NAMC Institute of Zoroastrian Studies is an educational arm of NAMC with an objective to train Morbids and impart knowledge of Zoroastrianism to fellow Zoroastrians and to community at large. So this event is facilitated by NAMC Institute of Zoroastrian Studies to promote knowledge through free but respectful discussion and debate. The views and opinions expressed during the discussions are those of the presenter and the participants and do not reflect the official policy or position of the North American Morbid Council. So during the presentation, we encourage you, the participants, to ask questions, engage in discussions, or share your views on the topic. The easiest and most effective way of doing it is to use the raise hand emoji or post a question in chat feature. Following a brief talk by the presenter, we will open the floor for discussion with the presenter. So throughout the event, we urge you to please be respectful of the views of the others. And now about the speaker. Ervad Poras Balsara is a professor of electrical and computer engineering and the associate dean of the academic affairs in the Jashans School of Engineering and Computer Science at the University of Texas in Dallas. He is a fellow of the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineering. He has been actively serving the Zoroastrian community in the Dallas-Fort Worth area as a volunteer Morbid and in several other capacities. So now, Poras said, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Tampton. Let me share my screen. Can you all see this?
Yes,
Can you all see my screen?
Yes,
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kobad. So first, I would like to make some disclaimers here. I'm not a religious scholar. I am a professor of electrical engineering and a volunteer priest here. And so this topic came up in our last NAMC meeting. And since I opened my mouth too much, no good deed goes unpunished. Kobad Zorolia volunteered me to prepare a presentation on this topic. So this is the topic that came up in our meeting. So before I get into any discussion, I remind myself of the words of our prophet. So whenever I get into any discussion, I should go with my open mind and hear all the points of view, and then I should decide for myself what path I need to follow. And so I think this should apply to everyone for any discussions in our day-to-day life also. That way we collect all the information and then move forward and then bear the consequences of our own actions. So here are the topics that came up in that last NAMC meeting. That can we recite names of non-Zoroastrian spouses in our prayers, whether they are for departed or for living. So Jashans, Tandarosti prayers and all. And then somebody extended it to, can we recite names of non-Zoroastrian immediate family members or even others to be recited in our daily prayers? And then the question was that if it's a non-Zoroastrian, how should these names be recited? Because normally when we recite do our Tandarosti prayer or Jashan prayers, we say Bedin or Osta or Ervad in front of. So if it's a non-Zoroastrian, what should be the prefix in front of their name? Okay, so let's see both the. So there were some points of views that were expressed in that meeting, and then I did my own digging around and asked people around. So I'm presenting both the points of views, and then we can have a discussion. And remember, it's a discussion amongst everyone and not just me kind of stuff. So everybody can share the things. So let's see what are the reasons against reciting names of non-Zoroastrians. So first point of view is Zoroastrian prayers are for the Zoroastrian Pravashis, and Zoroastrian Pravashis are supposed to progress through life and beyond because of their religious practices. So there's no reason why a non-Zoroastrian Pravashi or non-Zoroastrian person's name should be taken, because they don't follow the same religious practices. So it's not beneficial to them. The second common reason that is expressed is the traditions, that all our prayers and rituals are based on our unbroken link or silsila to the past. And so since non-Zoroastrian names were not remembered in the past, and I'm putting past in quotes because I don't know how distant past was there when the non-Zoroastrian names were not remembered in prayers. But this is the tradition that has been followed in India, and hence this tradition should not be broken. And then the last point that I've heard is that I don't have to say non-Zoroastrian names in the prayers, but whilst I'm doing my prayers, I should keep their names or keep them in my thoughts. Since Zoroastrian prayers are mainly in thought and then expressed in words, so this should be good enough since our prayers are thoughts and words kind of stuff. So these are the points of views that I found. I could not find anything in our prayers which explicitly prevents us from taking non-Zoroastrian names here. So now let's look at the other side. So what are the reasons for reciting the names, or what are the facts that are there that helps us understand that the names can be recited without any problem? So first point of view is Aura Mazda is omnipresent in all living beings, and hence all the Pravashis exist in non-Zoroastrians too. So we should remember them, their names in our prayers, because we know that Pravashis exist in all living things in the complete creation. So there is a Pravashi of plants, Pravashis of animals, Pravashis of mountains, and so on and so forth. So all creations of Aura Mazda have Pravashis, and hence there's no harm in remembering them in the prayers. Now let's look at the prayers. So our common prayers, when we do our Jashans, we do Dibache before the Afrin Gans. And in the Dibache prayers, there are references to Pravashis. So I've only taken two scriptural evidences here, one from the Afringan Dibache, and the other one is from the Pravadin Yastya. So if you look at, so there are several references to Pravashis. I'm not giving the whole translation of the Dibache, but there's one place where we say Hastan, Budan, Bedan. You can read the paragraph here, but in this, what we are talking about is that all Pravashis. So if you look at the last phrase, it says As Gayomad Anda Soshyosh Aidariyatbat. So all Pravashis are remembered here from Gayomar to Saushios. So which are the Pravashis that are remembered are the list is given as Hastan, Budan, Bedan, Zadan, and so on. So the list is of the living, of the departed, of those to be, of the born, of those unborn still, of this country. So now if you are saying that this was the prayers that were done in Iran, so of this country means Iran, of the countries across our borders, so other non-Iranians, of holy men and women, of minors, of adults, each and every one of those who have departed from this physical world. So this is one place where it says that I should remember each and every Pravashi that has departed from this world, or each and every Pravashi from my country, from the countries across the borders. So if we say that Zoroastrianism was practiced predominantly in Iran, so then even Turanians and others who are considered to be enemies of Iran, their Pravashi is also remembered. The next one is that towards the end of the Dibache prayer, we say Hama Pravashashan Hafta Keshwar Zamin Arzai Sav. So here we talk about that all Pravashis of the righteous, so Ashoan, we remembered from all 7 climes of earth. So we are remembering not just now countries beyond Iran, but now we are covering a blanket statement that all regions of the earth, Pravashis from all regions of the earth be remembered. So nowhere it is mentioned that these are only the Zoroastrian Pravashis from all regions of the earth. Now, if you look at the Pravadin Yash, in Karda 2, verse 2, we talk about Maniyao, Visyao, Zantumao. So here we are talking about Pravashis belonging to the house, to the street, to the town, to the country or province. So again, here it's a reference to several different Pravashis. Then again, the next one is Vispao, Vispanam, Dakyunam. So Pravashis of all the people of all the countries, friendly countries are also remembered. Then if you look at the Karda 15, verse 1. So you're talking about Yao Urvaranam. So now we are talking about Fravashis who help trees grow beautifully and bear fruits here. So these are the Fravashis of the trees that are being remembered in the Fravadin years. Similarly, in Karda 22, verse 11, we are talking about Pasukanam, Daitikanam, Upamanam, Upasmananam. So here we are talking about Fravashis of animals. So again, in the animals also, they are explicitly listed. Fravashis of wild animals, Fravashis of animals living in water, Fravashis of animals living on the ground, Fravashis of the flying animals, Fravashis of the wild animals, Fravashis of the grazing animals. So again, here, the different Fravashis are also remembered. So now we are talking about all sorts of different Fravashis that are there. And somebody the other day mentioned to me about the Yenge Hatam prayer. So in Yenge Hatam prayer, we also talk about respecting or revering all men and women, not just Zoroastrian men and women who are good and who are righteous kind of stuff. And lastly, if we are going through some tough times, every now and then we will meet someone and they'll say that I will do prayers for you, or I'll have you in my thoughts and pray for your well-being or good times kind of stuff. So now, shouldn't we reciprocate something similar to somebody else? And if they are going through bad times, why shouldn't we pray for them so that their health and well-being is taken care of through our prayers kind of stuff? And if we are doing something noble, what harm does it come to us or to our religion kind of stuff? So these are some of the points that are mentioned that I find for reasons for reciting these names in our prayers. So now the question is, if the names of non-Zoroastrians are to be recited in our prayers, what should the prefix be? Should the prefix be Kurd? Or somebody the other day mentioned in the meeting that Ashoan should be used, and I'll give you the reasons for why these were mentioned, versus not using any prefix at all. Just say, instead of saying Ervad Poras, just say Poras. So let's see what we have. So Kurd, Temton Mirza brought this to my attention, that Kurd is based on the Persian word meaning not full or complete. So hence this word Kurd was reserved for somebody whose Naujot is not done. And so since a non-Zoroastrian person is Naujot is not done, so we can use Kurd for that person. Okay. Because once the Naujot is done, the person becomes full. So till the Naujot is not done, the Kurd is a prefix that can be used. So now somebody mentioned the other day that Kurd is only meant for Zoroastrian whose Naujot is not yet done, but will eventually be done. Since a non-Zoroastrian will never undergo a Naujot, hence Kurd cannot be used as a, and so instead of using Kurd, we should use Ashoan as a differentiator for the prefix. And my last opinion is, don't use any prefix. Don't use any prefix. And these names without prefix are already there in our prayers. If we look at the Dibache prayers before the Afringans, we remember our illustrious ancestors. And so several names, when we do the names of Asho Zarathustra and our illustrious ancestors, we say the name of Dogdo Paurushas without any prefix. We say Yazdezat Sheriar without any prefix. Ardavira, Farda Fravash without any prefix. Jamas, Habub without any prefix. And of course, there are recent names with prefix. So Dastur Neryosang Ervad Dawal, Dastur Merji Ervad Vacha, and then the last name is Bedin Homa, Bedin Jamshed. So we have evidence in our scriptures, and that we are praying in our prayers in our rituals of names without prefix and with prefix. So if Kurd or Ashoan is not applicable, then we should not pray we should not put any prefix with the names here. So these are the points that I have mentioned here. And then lastly, I would like to end by again remembering that we revere all the righteous Fravashis who are good, who are brave, and who are beneficent. And these are all the references to different Fravashis and words that I found just in the Afringan Dibache prayers and in the Fravadin Yash. So there are several references to several words. I have not given you full translation of the Frawadiniyas, where each and every Frawashis are mentioned. So there are Frawashis of the warriors, Frawashis of the traders, Frawashis of the priests, Frawashis of the people who maintain law and order in the society. So there are all these names that are mentioned, Kanasa. So these are the points I wanted to mention, and now let's open it up for discussion, Kanasa. May I stop sharing now?
Yes, please. So feel free to raise your hand, and we will take one at a time. Okay. So Poras, if you want to stop sharing this,
Yeah.
That's good. So we go with Firdosh. Go right ahead, Firdosh.
Thank you very much, Stanton. Hello, Poras. How are you? So
Hi,
wonderful
Firdosh, how
to
are
hear
you?
you. Just an awesome presentation. And
Thank
it is
you.
even more awesome because it is in kind of line with my thinking. So I really, really appreciate it. I'll just relay a simple example of my life. I can't judge for others. I can't say what you or others have to do. I can only say what I do or I can. Based on my understanding of what I have learned from Zarathustra's understanding, 1996, 25 years ago exactly, I went through a life-threatening medical condition. My doctors, for whatever reason, tried to help me out, and they say, if you don't stop going through this condition that you have and not take the proper medication or surgery or whatever, you'll be dead in 6 months. I thought that might be a blessing in disguise, but like all of us, I tried to take the medications. I took that for 2 years, got worse and worse and worse, ended up in a wheelchair, ended up almost being blind, etc., etc. And finally, the doctor says, well, we have no choice but to take that organ out because that leads to your taking all these medications, which are giving you all these side effects. So I said to the doctor, okay, do what you guys know is the best. And I tried everything. I even went through a double-blind study. I don't know if most people understand that, where you are given medication that you don't know and your doctor doesn't know. Totally immersed research project. Anyways, so after that, I got well. So after 4 operations, I was fixed. I am still alive, facing you and alive to talk about it. But what I did was, and that is the point here, at the anniversary of my last operation, out of the 6 that I went through and 4 for this problem directly, I wrote to India, and I don't want to bring in other people and their names, etc., etc. And I requested my Agyari priest, Pantaki, to say Thanksgiving Machi on the anniversary of my operation or coming home from the hospital. And I promised myself, if everything goes well and if I'm still alive, I will do this every year. Not that I was bringing business for the Mobeds or for the Agyari, it didn't matter. It was a small amount for a Machi. And everything was fine. And he agreed, etc. No problem. He knew me from many, many years. But when the day came to do the Machi, about a couple of days before, my brother called me and said, Dasurji wants to know, are your women chokha or clean or maybe meaning not in menses? So I said to him, what has that got to do with it? This is my thank you to Abrahamaza for helping me out. Tandarosti, they will have to recite their names in the Tandoor, and he wants to know, otherwise he cannot recite their names. I have my wife and my daughter, and I said, I'm not that kind of guy who pokes my nose in their personal affairs as to who is in time when, especially my daughter, and she's not even in town. And he insisted I should call, otherwise the Mobed will not pray. I said, fine. I understand that the Mobed has been qualified and brought up in his system. This is what he is taught and that is what he will do. So it's okay. I accept that he will not pray, so don't let him pray. It's fine. I'll still go ahead with the Machi this year. But after that, I decided in my mind that if this is what a Machi means, I'm not going to do it anymore after the first year. And then second, third, fourth, I kept on, I did the Jashan or whatever at my home, whether I was in Dallas or whether I was in Calgary or whether I'm now in Vancouver, or even ended up praying myself. Yeah, whatever. I don't have to force a mobbed to do that. So my issue is very simple. And ever since my life, I have been reciting names of non-Zoroastrians, non-Zoroastrian women, whether they are married or not, just friends, especially during their sickness. And I have not cared whether they are in menses or not. In fact, I have now kind of developed a small reputation where friends and family will call me up and say, Firdaus, so-and-so that I know is going through cancer. He is going through, and they could be non-Zoroastrians, totally. And a couple of them were even Black citizens of United States. So can you please pray their name so that they can get well? And I have done that. I have not shied away from it. That I keep praying everybody's name that I find out needs their sort of medical support. If that is not the time of Tandarosti, that you pray for somebody who needs divine intervention to help them face the medical condition, when am I supposed to do that otherwise? So I have been doing it. Sorry if I'm doing wrong. To those who believe that I am doing all crap and bullshit, then my prayers will not reach. Fine. That is their belief. I respect them. But this is my belief. So I think essentially it's as our religion as it, I know it boils down to us individually of what we believe and want to believe and practice. And I'm glad, Poras, you gave me lots of material today to feel good about it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Firdaus.
Thank you, Firdaus.
Okay, so we take Kobat now. Kobat, sir, go
Okay.
ahead.
Firdaus, I hope my name is on your list. Okay, when you do your Tandarosti.
You are on the bottom of the list.
Okay, back Poras, like if you go back to your simple prayers, like Gay,
Right.
Havan Gay,
Right.
we are praying for everybody. We are praying for the landlord. We are praying for the person who looks after the village, person who looks after the city. Everything we are doing that. So
Right.
there could be in India also when we pray, we are praying for non-Zoroastrians.
Right.
But people don't realize that, so they don't care. But or people just question because they have to. And the biggest problem I have, and because Parsis are very prejudiced people. If you look at our names in our community, except Iranian names, we have European names like Malcolm, Jimmy, things like that. How are you going to distinguish? Somebody says, put a Malcolm's name. I don't know Malcolm is a Zoroastrian or non-Zoroastrian. Okay, but if there's a Ram, so we as a prejudiced people, we have created that mindset in India. Okay, but when we pray the other prayers, nobody translates it or nobody reads the meaning of it. So they go on praying for others as it is. I agree with you that name does not make a difference. We can all pray for anybody you want to. Bombay had Delhi had a big 100 people sitting down and praying for Jawaharlal Nehru when he died, and all the Bombay, all the Dastujis were there. So they, so it's whom you're praying for. And I know in India, when Tata died, they refused to do his Utamnu also in Bedragyari because he was buried outside. So everybody has their own take. Nobody, and because we are thinking religion, there's no compulsion for anybody to do what they want to do. So they can do anything. People will say names, people won't say names. And I think that's a free will we are going at this moment in Canada and USA. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We go to Zenobia. You have to unmute yourself, Zenobia.
Yeah. Just to follow up on what Kobat said, yes, I'm a proud Delhi person. And we have always allowed even non-Parsis to attend our prayers. I mean, this harkens back to when I was a child, and I remember the conversation at the dinner table when my grandfather was a trustee. And my father and grandfather had also both worked for Army headquarters. He said, what's the harm? They come out of respect, they come in uniform, they salute the dead body, they place a wreath over there. So of course, this is a little different from taking the names, but yes, we've been a very liberal, open society in Delhi. And I think we've prospered because of that. Our membership has grown instead of reducing. And also regarding taking names in our prayers, when somebody goes to Rome, we'll tell that friend, if a friend is going to Rome, please place some candles on the altar for me. So we are ready to jump into somebody else's faith. We should also be ready to open the doors of our faith, to at least take the names of the people who have helped us, who have guided us, and who care for us. So we are doing nothing. We're just wishing them well by taking their names in our prayers.
Okay, thank you so much. Well said. Okay, and Behram Sahib has something to add.
Let's be more pragmatic, and I shall talk about it, keeping in mind my personal experience while I was in uniform for over 30 years. I've had a couple of instances where soldiers have died saving my life. To give you an example, we were out on a patrol, we got into an ambush, and this soldier saw a hand grenade coming at us, being thrown at us. He pushed me to the ground and he fell on me. The grenade burst, the splinters hit him, and he was gone. I was under him, and after a few seconds, I said his name was Ran Bahadur. I said, Ran Bahadur. There was no response. And then I found him dead. Now here is the soldier. Here is a man who saved my life. Can I be so ungrateful not to remember him? There are other instances also. But after all, what is the harm if you remember anyone who's helped you in your life? I see no objection to it. And I'm one of those, I practice what I preach. So I take names of non-Zoroastrians, not during my personal prayers, but also during Jashan ceremonies. Thank you.
Thank you, Behram. I agree with you. I do remember names of a handful of teachers of mine who are still alive and who are old and going through tough times right now with COVID. I remember them because I am what I am because of whatever they did for me when I was a child. And I always remember my teachers first before anybody else. So thank you.
Thank you. Mehbad Sahib, go ahead.
Sure, thank you. Very nice speech given for us. And I'd also like to say that whenever I have done the prayers, and even recently during this last weekend when I had to do the prayers, my son was there with me. And I also told him, these are the family members, whether the person is married outside of the community or whatever, the person is a husband, and we say the names. And he also willingly takes the names with me while I'm saying the names of whoever it may be at that time. And we normally say it with code, because sometimes I wonder if I have to say with Ashoan, it will be really hard to remember, because when I'm saying Hama Ashoan, Hama Asho Farohar at the Riyadbad. So I always go with the route of saying code, but I do say the names of any family members, whoever they want me to say with saying code. The only issue that I have come across, I understand this is the topic about we saying the names about the non-Zoroastrian people, but this is not to deviate something on a different topic, but we sometimes have been requested by family members to say the names of their pets because sometimes people take their pets also as a, now that's where sometimes it's really difficult. But normally for any non-Zoroastrian names, I would always say their names, no matter, and even right now as I do my Tandarosti every day, I say the name of the Greek family member whom place that I stayed for some time until I got married, and she's suffering with COVID. So every time when I say the Tandarosti, I say her name as well. So may God take care of her and get her well, very well in that way. So I don't see any harm in taking anyone's name, and I always feel very happy about doing so. Thank you.
Kava said, your wisdom. We are waiting for your wisdom.
No. Don't don't say that. The question that I see it is Zoroastrianism a universal religion or is it a tribal religion? The problem has always been for the last so many centuries that Parsi and Zoroastrian has been considered to be synonymous, and it is not. Parsi is a tribe, Zoroastrian is a religion, and as far as I know, Zoroastrianism is a universal religion. There is absolutely no harm in giving the names of somebody who is a non-Zoroastrian. What difference does it make? As Mebad, what difference does it make if you give the name of a pet? Doesn't the pet have a Fravashi? So what is the harm in doing that? Now, if it is considered to be a completely tribal religion, I can see that only members of that tribe's names can be given. That argument I can see, but I don't agree with it. But that I can see. Even the Naujot ceremony, when you say that Khud applies to only a person whose Naujot has not been done, but whose Naujot can be done, is the Naujot ceremony a Zoroastrian ceremony, or is it a tribal ceremony for the Magoy? These are the questions that need to be answered and have to be taken into consideration. As far as I'm concerned, Zoroastrianism is a universal religion. You can give the name of anybody, whether he's a Zoroastrian, whether he's a non-Zoroastrian. We give the name of the Mazda-Yasnis who came before Zarathustra, so obviously they were not Zoroastrians. We remember Rustam Pelwan, Rustam Sam, Kesas, Nariman. They were not Zarthostis, they were Mazda-Yasnis. So what difference does it make then? So anybody who turns around and says only Zoroastrian names can be given, and then in the Dibache they give the names of all these Pelwans, it's a contradiction in terms. So where is the harm in giving the name of a non-Zarthosti? And isn't Zoroastrianism a religion of love and peace and embracing everybody who is righteous? So give the names.
Thank you, Kava said. Farooq, go ahead, Farooq. So.
I much appreciate what Poras has laid out. And there's a very important point that Poras has made out there. He's made a distinction between the layperson and a priest. And what he's also said is that once you've decided, you have to take the consequences of your decision. That, I think, is a very important point that Poras has made. Poras, correct me if I'm wrong.
You're right.
Okay.
That's why I said that every issue will have sometimes more than, not sometimes, in fact, all the times, more than one points of view. And sometimes we have more than two choices. And we have to decide, as long as you are deciding, as long as we are deciding based on the facts that we are collecting and thinking about it, then we have to bear the consequences, good or bad, of our actions.
Very good. So now let me continue where what Fidosh said. He talked more than Poras, giving his history. But let's take a look at what he said. He said he does what he thinks is right. Well, more power to him. He takes the consequences of his action. But think about a priest who has been trained in a movidi, and the layperson goes to him and says, hey, guess what? I want you to do such and such, such and such, such and such. The priest has to think deeply whether he is the custodian of doctrine or whether he is the custodian, as has been suggested by Kavas, that this is a universal religion. If the priest believes that this is a universal religion, then certainly the priest can go about and make that happen. But those rituals then need to be different to the rituals that we have in traditional Zoroastrianism. The words need to be changed. The Ashirwad, for example, in the wedding ceremony can be changed, and it should be changed so that it reflects the correct meaning of what the priest has said or uttered. Kavas said, it doesn't matter, how can it harm anybody? Very true. If you believe it doesn't harm anybody and you put in, and somebody says, get dogs there and stuff like that, fine, do it. But then be prepared to take the consequences. So as a layperson, I think a person has the opportunity to decide for himself whatever he believes in and proceed. But for a priest, and to ask a priest to do this, I think is a bit much from the laity.
Yes, I think, but the priest also at the same time has the opportunity to bow out of it. So it also depends on the morbid to decide whether he or she now as morbidia would feel comfortable doing that or not. So I think the freedom of choice, as much as it is for a layperson, it should also be for the morbid, whether the morbid feels comfortable doing that or not. Thank you so much. Okay, Rohinton said.
I want to continue with that.
Sure.
As long as the morbid says, I'm not using my position as a morbid to promote it, I say, yes, he has the freedom. But if the morbid says, I'm a morbid and I'm telling you, based on my morbidity understanding that I'm going to do it, I feel uncomfortable. Because the morbids who have been trained are in the traditional, have been trained traditionally. We don't have a morbidia or training in the United States saying this is the doctrine to which you subscribe. So people who have been ordained in India, I would say, unless they are scholars, unless they've really truly looked at the doctrine, it will be difficult for me to accept they're coming along and using their position and saying, hey, guess what? Because I'm a priest, I can tell you this is okay, because this brings across the notion that because he's a priest, he knows, and therefore it's okay. That is not true. A priest may be as ignorant as the layperson.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's go to Rohinton Seb.
Yeah. So we recite the names of our illustrious morbids in the prayers Jashan ceremony, for instance. What is the protocol for adding those names? Because some of the names are of Indian origin, others are ancient Iranian origin. So what is the protocol for adding those names?
Yes, Rohinton. In the old times, the tradition was that these illustrious names that are taken are the illustrious names from your local community. So when somebody passes away, at the Uthamna prayers, it was people do charity in the name of the deceased person. And also if the person was a prominent person who has done a lot of things, was a righteous person and all, people used to decide that their name should be added to our prayers whenever we do community prayers in the for say Jashans and other things. And so that's how these names were added. And I don't know when this tradition ended, because if you look at the list, I think probably Bedin Homa and Bedin Homa is one of the last persons that are added. I've seen names of Jijibais and Tatas added to the list sometimes, kind of stuff. So it all depends upon what the local community does. And perhaps in US, maybe we should revive the tradition that if somebody is a prominent person who has really contributed to the local community can decide that in their local community prayers, that person's name should be remembered as our illustrious forefathers.
Rohinton, if I could add, so in Vancouver, they always recite the name of Jamshedji.
Oh.
So it is a practice that we still follow, but the whole community had to decide because he had made so much contributions. It was unanimous. So otherwise it gets into whose name should be added or not. But we also recite the names of Udvarana Dasturjis here. Or even outside Dasturjis in North America, we recite when we are praying. So it's not lost per se.
So it's left to the community to decide.
Yeah. And the Mabed also, to be fair, okay? Temton, what is your experience?
Yes, and I think I agree with you. It depends on the lineage of the Mobed as well. So if you are from Udvada lineage, you would tend to remember the Udvada Dasturs and Mobeds, etc. And also, as Arda says, the people in the community. So if there are distinguished people in the community, for example, perhaps a good name that we should start reciting now would be Ervad Soli, a very distinguished person who left us, but made a tremendous difference and contribution to Zoroastrianism in North America. So people like that needs to be remembered, and it will happen automatically. These things happen as these names are added to the list. Okay, and to the point, I think Kavas mentioned people who were Mazdiistas, people who were not even, at that time Zoroastrianism wasn't even in picture. Rustam and Zal and all those guys, we still remember them. We say their names. So as we have the old historical names, we still continue with new names. We always add some new names. So it's a dynamic list. It keeps on changing.
But just to add that to Tentan, when I wrote to Iran, Mobed Firozkari wrote back to me, they have abolished all the old names of Rustam, Jal, and all those people, which doesn't mean nothing to the people when you're saying their name. At this moment, if you ask one of our participants who was Jal or who was Sikh, they would not know. They have added names in the Jashans of the people who died recently when they had a war between Iraq and Iran, of the Zardoshtis who died in that war. They put those people's name because people can relate to them when they're praying. And this is what the changes they have done, okay, in their own Jashan ceremonies and things like that.
Thank you. I think there is a chat, and Nina says that perhaps today would be a great day to start a petition to add Ervad Soli Dastur's name, and perhaps I second that.
In fact, I've been taking Soli Dastur's name in my prayers when I started doing it at Zend.
Excellent.
We do the same thing here, but now he was my friend too, so it may be biased, but I think it should be voluntary. Nobody should be forced to doing anything. I want to pray his name because I believe that he has made enormous contribution, and then it's up to people to decide. We cannot force every association to say Soli by his name. I don't know how we would do that or achieve that.
Yes, agree. That would be difficult because even now, the names being said by each Mobed would differ. It depends on how they were trained and how they view the names. So there is no standardized list as such. And in a sense, it's good that we don't have a standardized list. So that way, there are many more names would be said throughout North America. If there was a standardized, there would be only 10, 15, 20, or 50 names, and that's about it. Okay, so in a sense, it's good that we don't have it, but we should continue with with people adding the names as they see fit. Firoz Sahib?
I think we just got off the topic. I agree with all this Jamshedji Pauri's name and everybody. That's fine. Nothing wrong in what we are doing. But the topic today is adding non-Zoroastrian names. So moving on in that, the second point I want to make is I do really appreciate and respect my dear friend Farooq Mystery's dry sense of humor. And if he thinks I talk more than Poras, I think he should buy a new watch. Moving along, there are two Mobeds on the screen today who have done that Jashan in my home at different places of what I talked about on the anniversary of my operation. And after the doctor gave me 5 years to survive after that, I am very happy to stand in front of you or sit in front of you and tell you that I just celebrated the 25th anniversary of that operation. So yes, it does work. I did not ask the priest that he has to do it. When I got the answer that no, he will not do it, I agreed with it. I respected his decision for his training and certification and upbringing. All I did was next year after that, I did not do it. I had given my word for that first year and I kept my word. So that is where it is. And I will continue with what I do with even names, Zoroastrian, Parsi, non-Zoroastrian. It's okay for Tandarosti, at least. I'm not talking about other things. Tandarosti, I feel that is when you pray for somebody's health. Everybody deserves good health. So that is my universal understanding. And with that, I want to end in one thought that this concept of lighting a candle in the church and all that, I have been with other Parsis and my own mother and done that 100 times. But importantly, even my Gujarati and Jain friends in Bombay used to get upset with me. How come you don't let us get into your agyare when you want to come to our mandirs and all, and it's okay? And I told them, please don't start that with me. I'm not in a position of any level to answer you. Please, Jawado, I can't help. And that's when they would turn their thought and say, okay, take a couple of bucks from me. They would give me the money and tell me, Moru Sukar Karao. And I do not know whether doing the sukar of a non-Jarthosti's money is still okay to put on that fire. I thought it was okay. I am revering the fire in a different way. So I did it. The Dasarji would have told me, no, you cannot do it. I would not have argued. I would have backed off right away because he has more right to say that than I have. That's my point. Thank you.
Well, actually, to take that point one step further, Firdosh, if you go to Udvada Beram, you would see that the people who sell their wares outside, non-Zoroastrians, on special days, they will bring a piece of sukkar and leave it at the front gate. And that sukkar would be offered to Iran Shah right there. So it's done. It's an accepted practice.
And
so
I've heard about this in many countries and not just.
I'm sure. I'm just giving this as an example, being the highest grade of fire that we revere the most. Yet that fire accepts offerings from anyone who brings an offering to that fire and blesses everybody. Thank you. So Freddie, go ahead, Freddie, Katie.
Hi, sorry, computer Marika just slow her. I have a comment and then I have a question. The comment I have is that I pray the Avasthan Tandarosti, where there are no need to mention any names. It's a beautiful Avasthan Tandarosti from Gangaji's book. And the one that we are talking about is a Pahlavi or a Palan Tandarosti, where you kind of have to take names of, etc. So Avasthan Tandarosti, I think part of that prayer, if I'm not mistaken, is from Yasna 65, and it's also in your Afringan or something, where you're blessing the house, you're blessing all the people who are there, etc., etc. No names mentioned. So I think that's a very valid and an excellent Tandarosti prayer that does not need any names to be mentioned. That's a comment. The question I have for our Poras Sahib is, and for all other Mobbits and everyone, how do that, speaking of prefixes, Asta so-and-so, Kud so-and-so, Ashavan so-and-so, and how do we mention those names when one of the spouses is Zoroastrian and the other is non-Zoroastrian, and maybe one belongs to the Asta family, etc., or even a non-Asta? How would you then address that person's name? Would it be Asti, or would it be Bedin, or would it be, I don't know. It's a question, and I welcome any comments. Thank you.
I think that's a very excellent question, and these are the places where you have to start thinking. So some traditionalists believe that if a lady marries outside, that lady is out of the Zoroastrian religion. So if you believe that, then you say Kurd or whatever you want to say for the non-Zoroastrian. The other tradition is that if a Bedin marries to a priestly family, the Bedin's title gets changed from Bedin to Osti or Osta. Only if the ladies. If the man marries, that doesn't change anything. So these are all these traditions, and I don't know whether these are scriptural traditions or these are just traditions that have been created for certain societal needs kind of stuff. Because I don't have any, to tell you frankly, I don't have a clear answer, because I don't see any, if you ask somebody this relevant question, then I don't see a clear answer, except that this is the tradition.
Poras, can I add something?
Of course, Arda, this is an open discussion.
So I like Behramji Panthaki's solution the best. My personal belief is we get caught up in the trees and not focus on the forest. I don't care what title you call me by. You can call me AU. Dadaji knows who I am. So I don't think you should even focus on any titles. If you say Ardara, who cares if it's Ervad, Osta, Bedin? Why do we focus on that and waste time? That's my humble belief. And I learned that from Behramji Panthaki. When
that's exactly what
some
I said
people
in the last part, that there are no prefixes, names are already being taken. So don't put any prefixes.
That's true. I agree with you.
Behram, go ahead. Behram, you are muted.
If I'm not wrong, this tradition has come down to us from Sasanian dynasty, the last dynasty. And if you remember in our debache, we say Hama Athurnan, Hama Rataistaran, Hama Vasriosan, Hama Hutoksha. During Sasanian dynasty, it was these four sects were rigidly followed. And the king, the ruler, ensured. And also they went to the extent that you cannot jump from one to the other society. And they had their reasons for it. And I think that is what we are continuing. And maybe of late, because the environmental changes, we are saying if Bedin marries in a priestly family, she becomes Osti. Not only she becomes Osti, but let me tell you, in a lighter vein, she will go to heaven. That is what it is. And that's what I keep telling my wife.
And 7 generations to add. So Zenobia, if you have a quick comment, we'll let you through quickly.
He's been telling me that I owe him from the day I married him, but I'm not sure I want to go to heaven with him.
That's a good point.
Thank you, Viraf. Go ahead, Viraf.
Viraf, you're muted.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So, great conversation. It's good everybody's kind of giving a point of view on how we say the name. I have a little bit of a different perspective. When we select to give somebody's name in our prayers, whether it be in the Tandarosti prayer or whether it be in the prayer when we are remembering them because they have deceased. The reason we choose that person is because they have had an enormous impact in our lives or they've had an impact in our lives. And as individuals, to forget somebody who's had an impact in your life just because we got to decide whether we say their name or don't say their name, to me is not the right decision. So I really think that when we select a person's name, like I said, whether in a Tandarosti prayer or whether when they have deceased, I think it's a very personal, and in some case we honor them. And a lot of our prayers is honoring the people who have come before us. And that's just my point of view. And this is my first time even attending this, and it's quite an eye-opener for me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Viraf. And I hope that you attend more of our events. We try to make them such that they're interesting, provocative, and thought-provoking, so that people can think for themselves and make their own decisions. So
Well, I
thank you
have
so
to
much for
support
attending.
Poras. Poras is a Dallas person and a friend of mine. And Firdaus, we still consider you to be a Dallas person. You know that.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Karishma.
Thank you very much, Ervad Sahib. And thank you, Ervad Poras, for the thought-provoking share that you've given today. Today, what you did was to reference a 30.2, and you highlighted, although you didn't quite quote the Yasna 30.2, you highlighted the last line of the 30.2, which then, as I see it, Farooq also highlighted indirectly. And that is the phrase, Paramaze Yongho Ammaine Zazdayai Baudhanto Paiti. Baudhanto meaning the mind, the wisdom. And Paramaze is, according to my understanding, before each circumstance. So this concept of using the mind, of course, yes, Sucha Mananga, using the bright intellect, and each one for oneself, as you highlighted. This before each great event is a very important Sarthashti phrase that, as I see it, many of our speakers have drawn our attention to. So each community, each Mabid Sahib in their own wisdom for their community. And when we say even the Jammani Baj, we are actually giving gratitude, as Poras Sahib mentioned, for the people who have grown the food, the light that we use. So in some ways, we are giving gratitude constantly with every prayer to all the people who light our path. The other thing I wanted to highlight is what Ervad Sahib, Beram and Zenobia highlighted. So when I was about 2.5 years old, Dastuji Sahib Bodh, when he came home one day, the daddy brought him home. And he said, what's going on, you people? Lunch only, nothing else today? Let's do a prayer. So he sat mom and dad down and did the whole prayer ceremony. I was 2.5 years old and I was fortunate to witness this. So he may have sensed a need to do it. So whatever the priests decide, of course, I will bow my head down and say, thank you very much. But today has been an eye-opener. And I'm very grateful to all of you for sharing your wisdom, for Farooq making us think, for Firdaus sharing his wisdom further. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Karishma.
Anyone else has anything to add? Oh, okay, sorry. Kawa said, go ahead.
In 1896, Dadabhai Nauroji, who was also an ordained priest, wrote a letter to one of his co-parliamentarians in London, in which he said that 70% of the priesthood of the Zoroastrian community know nothing about their religion, and the laity knows even less. This was in 1896. Unfortunately, today, things have not changed much since then. 100 years, 150 years from now, God knows what is going to happen. Our priests know very little about the religion. As far as I'm concerned, they repeat their prayers by rote. If you ask them why is this ceremony important? What is the meaning behind the ceremony? They have absolutely no conception. Once again, I repeat, Zoroastrianism is a universal religion, and nobody seems to realize that, especially the priests in India. They refuse to accept that it is a universal religion, and they still insist that Parsi and Zoroastrian is synonymous and continue to do these things. Our titles, yes, Behram, they started the Sasanian dynasty, but we perfected them after we came to India. In Iran, there were no 3 grades of fire temples until the Sasanian dynasty. When the fire temples first came into being during the Achaemenian dynasty, that was the first time that the fire temples came into being. Before that, our fires and our prayer services took place on the top of hilltops in the open air, where anybody could come and can see it. Poras, in answer to your question, Findose, when you said that your Hindu friends say that we cannot come to your fire temples, the Hindus have temples where non-Hindus are not allowed. The Muslims have mosques where non-Muslims are not allowed. The Catholics have temples where non-Catholics are not allowed. So it is a universal thing. But in our case, it happened particularly after we came to India, and people do not seem to realize that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anaita, go ahead.
Yes, my question to Poras is a little bit different. I noticed that your last slide was something very unusual. And I don't know if any of you know, but some of us in Dallas know that Poras is also quite an artist. And I think you have put a lot of thought probably in the last slide. And so if you would elaborate on that, I think it would be useful for all of us.
In the last slide, all I did was collected all the words referring to different pravashis from the Dibache prayers and from the Frawadin Yash, and just put that list on the on some word art software to generate the word art in the shape of the fire and Fravashi that I always use in my slides as a logo on the corner. So, but these are all the different names of the different words in the scriptures that refer to different Fravashis. So Fravashis of plants, Fravashis of animals, Fravashis of warriors, rulers, Fravashis of the close-knit fraternity of the prophet, Fravashi of Gayomar, Fravashis of the people who are alive, dead, and all that. So any and every word that I could think of within the limits of this app that I was using for generating that word art, I put it in.
Well, thank you. And maybe, we all should learn some of those words. It would be something to add to our lives, to know the names. I mean, we know the names of the Shahnama kings and queens and whatever, but it would be useful to know some of these words also.
It's not just
a thought.
It's not just these words. A lot of times people say that, oh, we are playing in some language that we don't understand. You don't need to understand the whole grammar and context of all these languages. All that you need to know is certain keywords. If you know the meanings of the certain keywords, when we do our daily prayers also, we will have in our thought, we will have a certain gist of what we are praying. Just knowing certain keywords, that's all. You don't need to know the details of the language and grammar to be able to sit and do a detailed translation of the prayers. Because the words have been composed by people who have composed that, people who are saintly, people who are old priests and others, and it's more of generating the right meter and right kind of sound within ourselves to say the right words. Saying the translation doesn't mean much in terms of generating, because remember, a lot of these prayers and sounds that excite us or sometimes depress us and all are sounds that are generated around us and within us.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's interesting to note that our prayers assign Fravashis to just about everything that is around us. And therefore, it's so important that even the plants have a Fravashi. Animals have a Fravashi. Therefore, hurting or disrespecting any element of nature is not allowed, because now you are hurting or disrespecting something that is basically alive. And so therefore, that concept needs to be kept in mind. But thank you so much, Anaita. So Khushru, go ahead, Khushru said.
One point I'd like to raise, and we are in a world now where inclusivity is the key word. What message are we giving to our children when we exclude somebody because he doesn't belong to our club? So I think that has to be kept in mind. Even Asho Zarathustra, starting from him, it was inclusivity. That was the main message every time. He included everybody. In his gathas, there is inclusivity. Turanians, which were the enemies of Iran, he praised the Turanians who were righteous. So to him, the difference was only between people who followed the right path and the people of the lie. That to him was the distinction between anything, no other distinction. In his gathas, he talks about all countries. He talks about, I will convert all people. Convert was not the word that we use today. It meant I will give this message to all people of the world. And when we become exclusive, our children get turned off. Are we trying to do that? I think we are. We're trying to turn them off when we do this kind of thing. So yes, we should be inclusive. That's the key word. Thank you.
Sure, can I ask you a dumb question?
No dumb questions here.
No. So from all the morbid that you know, what is the percentage that you think are non-exclusive or don't include people, not inclusive rather, sorry.
I know a few.
Yeah,
I know
that's
a few
the point.
In North America, and that's always what bothers me. I can understand what's going on in India. Yeah, I can totally understand that. That, you know, when Timpton, your Kakaji came here and he was staying with us, almost there, my father-in-law was having a great discussion with him. And he gave a very wise statement. Homasya said, look, we live in India. You have to understand that. You are now in a new country and you do what you have to do in the new country. Don't try to change that back in India because we have to live with all these people. I thought that was a very wise reply he gave. So to just, Arda, to answer your point, yeah, I know a few and young people, young morbids who still have this sort of antiquated belief, and like Kawasbhai says, because of ignorance. Honestly, that's the only answer I can give, because of ignorance of our religion.
But Kushra, I would not get there to label people who don't agree with me are ignorant. But my point is, look, I personally believe, okay, in my heart, that when you look at people's behaviors, most of us fall on a bell-shaped curve. So at the very end, you might have some people who are very, very liberal, some are very conservative, but a majority of us are in the middle, the morbits, okay, from what I know from NAMC at least. So why do we waste our time focusing on those we disagree with? Let them be. Why do we have to waste time on that? That's my own angst, okay, about these discussions. Let's focus on the positive stuff of our people and our religious people and move the community along. We should not waste time on what is the chance you think you can convert anyone to your way of thinking? My answer is almost zero. I've tried it, believe me, I'm pretty old now. When I was young, I used to be, I had more gist and would try to convince someone. As I turned 50, I realized I could never change these people's thinking. So this is my own suggestion to people of our community. Let's not waste time on some minority who disagree with. Let's focus on the main thing that we want to do for our religion.
Khushru, Dastoji Hormazdia used to be my Dharmagyan teacher in school.
Really?
And when I met him in Pittsburgh after many years, the phrase that he actually used for describing what you just mentioned was Navi Gilli Navo Dao. So if you remember Gilli Danda from India,
yes.
So when there's a new Gilli, you start all over from scratch.
Yes.
So that's what he meant, that you guys are starting here from scratch, so you create your own traditions. Kind of.
That's very true. That's very true. Thank you.
Thank you. So Rohinton or Roshan, go ahead, please.
Yes, very thought-provoking seminar, really appreciate it. And as a lay person, I'm very confused now. Because on two fronts. Number one is that in general, I believe, of course, and it looks like most of the morbids here believe in the more liberal view. But I would very much like to give a chance, if you could organize a seminar, to hear the other side also. Because, as a layperson, I believe that everybody should be inclusive and we should say everybody's names. but I would really like to understand why they would not want to say the names. Where is it written? I would like to give a chance to the other side to express their views. Second thing that bothers me is that I really would like this decision to come from some authority like Morbid's Council. I don't want you to leave these decisions to individual Morbids or to the community members. I really would like to see some structure where the Morbids councils or the Morbids get together and they give us the guidance to the community. Should we ask the Morbids to recite names of non-Zoroastrians or not? I don't want this to be on my head. It should come as a pronunciation from the Morbids or from some authority. So those are my two concerns. Thank you.
I thought you had something to say.
I don't know. So I disagree with that characterization. I understand what she's saying, that there should be some centralization of decision making, but that is not how our whole structure is. If you think about it, okay? So to be fair, NAMC has passed resolutions that even Morbids don't follow. But we have no way of implementing or chastising the Morbid or whatever, okay? And I don't think it's very productive to get there. The best thing NAMC can do, and you can ask the next president, okay, in my humble opinion, is to come up with positive agenda that will lead our community forward. And I try to focus on the, as they say, 2 standard deviations in the middle of the bell-shaped curve, and focus on that and getting the community forward. If somebody doesn't want to say names, why make a big deal? And I know nobody can be naive here to not know why they are not saying it. Okay, we all know the reason why they don't want to say it. But who am I to tell them that they are ignorant if they don't say it? It just makes the problem worse. And I personally believe that when this generation dies, all these issues go away. So for the next 10, 20 years, whatever I have in my life, I don't want to waste my time on trying to convert people who don't think the way I do. They're smart. They'll figure it out one day. If they want to change, they can make a change in their own lives. Roshan, that's my own belief.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Karishma, I think we have got 3 people and we are running out of time. So I think we'll take the 3 people who have raised their hands. Okay, go ahead, Karishma.
Thank you, Ervad Sahib Tintin. I just wanted to pick up on a point that Ervad Poras made in one of his answers and link that to what I said earlier about 30.2, the Paramaze Yongo, and what Arda Sahib said just now, and related to a point in Yasna 33.9. The word there that is used is Vahishta Beretu Mananga. And Ervad Poras Sahib mentioned the prayers that are carried forward. And this concept of carrying forward, or the vibrations, and he's an electrical engineer, is translated by Kangaji as Baretu, meaning that which carries, like a mother carries a child. So the vibrations are in the environs. And do they affect the Fravashi? Do they affect the Ruan? Do they affect both the Fravashi and the Ruan? And I leave that as a question. And that comes back to what Ervad Sahib Arda said. People interpret things differently. Kobad Sahib has also said that. So I just leave that as a point, tying those 2 concepts together. Thank you.
I just want to comment on Karishma's comment. And don't worry about prayers, just listen to music. There is some music that makes you jump up and down from your seat. There's some music that saddens you. There's some music that brings tears to your eyes. So if the vibrations are not doing anything to your body, why are all these things happening? Just experiment it yourself. Same way you attend a Jashan, some Jashans, the way certain priests pray, it kind of is very soothing for you. There are some things that certain priests pray, are not, they just become mechanical. So depending upon Dastuji, Minocheromji used to say that, why do I perform rituals? So he used to say that I perform rituals to inform myself, to reform myself, to transform the surroundings around me. And so if my prayers do not do these things, then my prayers are meaningless.
Thank you very much, Ervad Poras. I was very fortunate at the age of 7.5 when Dasturji Minocheromji did the prayers for my grandfather, my Mamavaji. He explained the movement of the flowers. He explained what was being done, why it was being done, the relationship between the Mino and the Getig.
Right.
And he took that effort to do that to a child who was just about 7.
He took you to the Pavis.
He showed me the Pavis. He said, this is why we do it, the electromagnetic, the relationship, things like that. He explained.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank Roshan Aunty and Rohinton Uncle here, because they were the ones who recorded Dastuji Minocheromji's lectures from Chicago, and my friend Hutakshi Contractor shared those cassettes with me. I still have them. And those are the lectures that I was not able to attend those lectures, but the cassettes really were helpful to me. And a lot of these things that I learned, I gleaned from those cassettes and his teaching. So thank you.
Just one correction. It was Bomi Damkewala, and I think maybe he's here. He had a big role in recording the.
Okay,
tapes.
Thank you very much to everyone who did that, because that's and I think perhaps we should digitize those lectures and put them on an NAMC website. Otherwise, those cassettes will be gone. In fact,
Ervad Poras, absolutely. I have requested.
I don't know if anybody has cassette player now. So
I requested Roshan and Rohinton to allow me to help this process, and they have undertaken and so kindly given permission. So we will be doing, and we'll have much more to thank Ervad Sahib N.D. Minocheromji for very soon.
Bomi is doing that as we speak.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Zenobia, go ahead, Zenobia.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Khushru Mirza said. When Behram came here, since he wasn't a practicing priest in India, he started doing marriages, mix of people from mixed marriages from different communities, and also navjots of children from a mixed marriage. So he thought he should inform his father in India, who had been a practicing priest. And he said, before you get to know from external sources, let me tell you that this is what I'm doing. So his father turned around and said, and he was a man in his late 80s, early 90s, who had taught at the Kama Institute. I guess some of you must have studied under him. And he said, you are there to serve a community. If those are the needs of your community, you have to serve the community. So you please do whatever you're supposed to do. You've left India now, you're in another country. And I thought it was so progressive for a man of his age to think that way and to encourage his son.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the observation. I think if you think about it, most of our elders and Dasturs were progressive thinkers. Dasturji Mirza, for him to come here and say whatever he said to Poras was progressive. And most of the Dasturs who came over to guide us were progressive. Your father-in-law, progressive. So our leaders were progressive, and I think the important thing is that we should keep that momentum going. Thank you so much. So Behrouz, go ahead, please.
Well, actually, this is Astad. We were listening together.
Oh, okay, Astad, okay. Yeah.
Right, all right. And number one, I think this was a wonderful session. Thank everybody for it. I was very pleased to hear so many of you present the progressive viewpoint that we can use the names of non-Zoroastrians, certainly if they've been helpful to us in our lives. I want to pick up on Roshan's point because I was thinking something similar about NAMC perhaps sending a message that this would be okay to do. I fully also understand Arda's viewpoint that at a practical level, it may be a bit difficult to try and force somebody, a morbid, who believes one way, try and change their minds. In most cases, that is futile because the traditional thinking is extremely strong. Not just in India, but as someone pointed out, there are younger morbids here also who are in the traditional mode on this particular topic. But to move this to a practical next step, what do we do next? We have a number of young morbids and Navars going from our community to do their Navar ceremony in India and come back. They may have liberal viewpoints. They may agree with most of us here that it would be okay to use the names of non-Zoroastrians. However, when we do our prayers, particularly the Muqtad prayers, it's a sort of community event. And most of the decisions are made by the senior morbids, who of course are traditionalists, and I don't fault them. Their entire morbidity training was in India. So the younger morbids may feel differently, but because of the tradition, or you don't want to buck the system, go along with the old practices. So we've got to think of finding some halfway ground where a signal has to go to them. Right now in North America, we have the NAMC. I'm sure other diaspora regions also feel that way. But somewhere the signal has to go to our younger morbids who are going to be our future morbids in the diaspora, that it is appropriate. We need to educate them that it is a universal religion. And we need to send that message to them, because if they just follow what's happening with the traditional thinking right now, you're not going to change. And Arda, we don't have time. We don't have 20 years to wait for this generation to pass on for the newer one come. Our numbers are dwindling too fast for that.
Can I respond to Temtan? Can I respond to
Go ahead,
Astad?
please, sir.
So Astad, look, you and I are on the same page. Temtan and I and most morbids who attend NAMC meeting are pretty progressive. So when we get together, we have like-minded people getting together and we pass resolutions. That the other side does not attend and may not follow. So look, I believe in practicing what we preach. So Astad, look at what NAMC has actually done, okay? So what we did is when Solibai died, I don't think Joanne's Navjot has ever been done, but NAMC recited Joanne's name every time in our prayers. All the morbids did. So I think proof is in the pudding, Astad. So we are being a good role model by doing these things, not just telling people what they should do. We are doing, and it's up to them to follow us. Now, if they want to follow somebody who has a different point of view, we cannot force them. But we are being a good role model from my standpoint. Temtan, what do you think?
I second that. I think as much as we quote a certain verse of Gatha and use it for our advantage, we have to give equal opportunity and weight for that to be used for everyone. So if somebody feels uncomfortable, somebody feels that they should not be doing it, we should be respectful of their views. We cannot say that, well, no, they have to do a certain thing, even if they don't feel comfortable. They have to feel comfortable within themselves to act in a certain way. So having said that, yes, this is a signal. The signal is already sent out. It has been sent out for a while, and this is a louder signal with a huge voice, if you can say, is being sent to everyone that, well, this is what is understandable. This is what is logical. This is what is practical to accept. And some of our very wise morbids are here, and they spoke and they said their piece. So the signal has been sent. People who do accept it, people who do feel comfortable, they will practice it. They will act in a certain way. And people who don't, well, let's just respect them. Let's just have a certain respect for their views and let them practice the way they wish to do that, right? So to have the same understanding and same practice throughout would be difficult. You have to respect the other side. Okay, so thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I just want to clarify. I did not in any way imply disrespect. I've always said that I would always follow whatever the Morbets say. I fully, they have 100% right to their views. My message was only to get it to our younger Morbets. And I'm presuming this session will be on the NAMC website. Yes. And the best we could do is have all our younger Morbets listen to this. This was very revealing. And that would certainly help and send the right message.
I think, Astad, most of, I would say, vast majority of our younger Morbets understand this. They just do certain things out of respect to their elders. But if given a choice, they would do what you are mentioning. So I think Arda is right that the next generation will do things because they are brought up here. They are brought up to think on their own and take their decisions and so on. Unless you are bringing them up in a completely dogmatic manner as slaves, most of the children are not like that. They are going to question your decisions, not just the younger priests, but I have had interesting discussions with several non-priests, younger folks here, where they are discussing religiosity versus spirituality. And so there are a lot of these questions that are coming up. And as we move forward, a lot of these questions will come up and things will happen in the right way.
Certainly appreciate it. Very pleased to hear this all. And this is the last personal invitation for all of you to attend the World Congress in July in New York. Whoever can, we are going to have a very good session. The program will be out on the website shortly and would welcome all of you and to encourage all of you to come. The early bird registration gets over at the end of the month. So whoever was thinking about it but didn't get around to it, certainly appreciate your registering. Thank you.
I am on the program committee, and I really want to say that the program is going to be interesting, and there are lots of thought-provoking sessions. So I second Astad's request to register for the Congress and do attend.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Astad. And thank you so much, Poras, for this fascinating discussion, thought-provoking, and very well laid out. So thank you everyone for participating in this very fascinating discussion.
Yes. Kobad wants to say something.
Yeah, before you guys end, I have an announcement to make.
Go ahead.
People requested that we should have somebody else talk about different opposite opinion to what we have done today. I'll try to find a person to do that, or one or two priests to do that, so that will give people an idea of what is their thinking around this topic is. Second thing is, our presenter today is going to turn 25 tomorrow. So let's wish him happy birthday from all of us. Okay, it's Poras' birthday tomorrow.
No, my birthday was on January 9th.
So who's this another Poras Balsara?
No, Firdosh Mehta said that he is celebrating 25th anniversary of his surgery or that illness that he talked about.
I just got on our Facebook, Poras Balsara.
Do I look like 25?
No, he's 25. You're just going to, we are wishing
I look like
15.
25. So.
Poras, are you related to Tim Balsara?
Yes, very much. He is my mama.
Oh, wow. So Meru's
Meru's husband.
Okay, yeah, I knew Tim and Meru in Montreal. We were together.
I did that. I did all his grandchildren's Navjot. Myself and my son, we both did the Navjot.
Yeah. Let's just officially close this and then we can chit chat.
All Bahajis are related to each other.
Okay. Yeah, you can stop the recording and we can chit chat. I'll hang
around. Okay. So before we go,